Hi folks, so welcome. So my name is Killian O'Leary, so I am a career coach and also a tech recruiter by day as well. So kind of like to think that I have my finger on the pulse when it comes to what recruiters look for in candidates, in CVs and in job applications that come into our inbox as well. So really, you probably hear a lot of talk today about CVs and about what to do and what not to do and so on. All very relevant. What I'm trying to do here is just to give people a sense of through the lens of a recruiter. So what does a recruiter look for? Where does a recruiter's mind go when they see your CV coming in? And basically some tricks of the trade in terms of how to catch the attention of a recruiter and stand out from the crowd, because we do tend to look at many hundreds of CVs every month. So what is going to make that memorable impact by virtue of the content, shall we say, that you put into your CV profile? So here's a little bit about where I feel you might be able to help your search and your job process journey along the way as well. So still in all, I think first impressions absolutely still do count. So you got to bear in mind, this is about putting yourself into the shoes of a recruiter. So a recruiter sitting at their desk every day, they're getting all these CVs coming into their inbox, and you better believe it, first impressions do count. They still do count. We might have 20 job applicants for one role. We are essentially looking for a reason to almost rule you out of the process and get those 20 or 30 CVs down to a manageable 4 or 5, because we're probably not going to have the time to call or ring 20 or 30 people. So the first impressions, really important. And what I mean by that is that the first page of your CV or your cover note, your job application has to be really strong, really engaging, really warm. And I'll show some examples in a minute of good and bad CV profiles that I feel can either work for you or work against you. So the first impressions, really important. And as recruiters, we kind of tend to make up our minds about people in the first 30 seconds. So if we don't get what we probably call that warm, fuzzy feeling about somebody in the first 30 seconds, then it's unlikely that we're going to go, okay, I'm going to pick up the phone and ring this person, because the first page of your CV isn't really enticing us into engaging with you. So it's really almost like building that rapport instantly through the content and the layout of the first page of your CV. That's absolutely vital. And I think in many ways, most recruiters won't go on to the second or third page of your CV. If they see enough in the first page, they'll go, okay, yes, I've seen enough, brilliant, let's get this person in for interview. Or else on the first page, they see maybe spelling mistakes, structure's not right, it just doesn't look really, there's a bit of a coldness to the CV and so on. And it just doesn't kind of sync, really in a kind of an engaging way with a recruiter. Then they just push your CV to the side, and in their own mind they go, next CV please, and you lose your chance. So it's vital you catch their attention early through the first page of your CV. It needs to look professional, be enticing, and essentially, just show your value adds in that key first profile summary paragraph at the top of your CV, which is essentially your elevator pitch, if you like. So here, I would just say, if you had 5 minutes left in your working day as a recruiter, who would you pick up the phone and ring? I would suggest the one on the left. Some people might think differently, but the one on the right for me is very text heavy. There's a bit of coldness to it. It's a bit monotone as well. And if I have seen one CV like that over the years, I have seen 1,000. So really, it's the first one tells me that this person is very conscious of their own brand. They've put some time and effort into the structure of their CV. They're really passionate about how they self-market, so how they market themselves, and just really conscious that they, come across professionally and organized. I think it just looks like that person on the left has spent a lot more time and due diligence on their CV than the person on the right. Then again, that's a matter of taste as well for some recruiters. I don't speak for every recruiter, but I would suspect that a lot of recruiters would be more enticed by the first one than the CV on the right. So I think the CV on the left makes that successful impact instantly with the recruiter. There's a picture, It shows that, essentially what they've been doing, what their skills, competencies are. And the key one here, actually, and this has come up a few times today when I've done the one-to-one career coaching with people as well, is the certificates. So even if you're started just doing a certificate last week and you haven't finished it yet, or a training or a course, put it on your CV, because it shows the recruiter where your brain is focused, what you're passionate about. And even though there's a gap of 6 months where you haven't been working or something on your CV, or 2 years, it shows that you're taking ownership of your learning and you're looking to upskill continuously, and that you're being proactive about that. So it really does send a warmer message to the recruiter in terms of, I suppose, the ownership you're taking of your career journey. So for me, every time, the first page on the left strikes a much stronger chord than the page or the CV on the right. So this is another one where I'm talking about the use of action verbs. So the English language, it's not that complicated a language, and I would suggest you can really elevate the pitch in your CV by the words and the content that you choose to populate it with. So in this instance, I'm talking about words like achieved, exceeded, accomplished, etc. And what I've done here is broken it down by the different industries. So for technical roles, sales roles, management roles, finance, creative or marketing roles as well. So for example, if I'm a marketing recruiter and I'm looking at somebody's CV, every time I want to see words like published, designed, created, imagined, published. All of those things are words that I would expect to see on a candidate's CV applying for a marketing role. Equally, in sales, you have to, first of all, I would suggest have figures, but that's a separate slide. But the words, for example, for sales, you would need to put in things like delivered, negotiated, maximized, exceeded, etc. Because it's all about what sales figures you've achieved, where you've had successes, and what you've delivered. So that's the key thing. Really all I'm saying here is you're hitting the bullseye with the use of the words you use, really strong, impactful words, as distinct from kind of mundane, monotone words like, oh, I worked with, or I met with, and so on. Absolutely nothing wrong with those words, but you can really change the tone and the impact of your CV by the virtue of the words that you use. Every time, you can ask a colleague or somebody close to you to, have a look at your CV. Does it strike the right tone with them? Is it impactful? And they might suggest using more powerful words, I guess, to create more of an impact with your target audience, whether that be a recruiter or a job or a hiring manager in a company or a HR person as well. So that's just an interesting one where I did a post on that on LinkedIn during the week, and it got a lot of traction, actually. Even people really engaged with the post. So it's just using the words wisely on your CV to make sure they have that right impact and essentially catch the attention of your target audience through the use of language. So the next one is, again, just that's the theme of my presentation, is what essentially turns the head of a recruiter. And again, here I'm talking about some good and maybe not so good. For example, the middle one, where it's every time we get a CV, in most cases, recruiters will then go straight away and look at your LinkedIn profile. And if your LinkedIn profile and the dates don't sync up with your CV, then straight away there's an element of doubt that creeps into the recruiter's mind. There's a bit of grayness, there's a bit of inconsistency, and all of a sudden the recruiter tends to lose interest and perhaps goes, all of a sudden then their brain goes, okay, I'm actually going to move on to the next CV. So there's just that element of doubt that you just want to absolutely make sure that there's consistency across if you have a LinkedIn profile, that the dates on your CV and your LinkedIn are absolutely consistent. Because I've seen so many times where there's different dates on CV and LinkedIn, and to be honest, I just go to the next CV because I just feel that person isn't representing themselves in the best possible way. They haven't done their due diligence on their CV and LinkedIn, and kind of there's an element of that they don't probably care enough to actually do that due diligence. So would I want to hire them as a company or as an employee? or would I want to ring them and spend 20 minutes of my time chatting to somebody who can't represent themselves in that kind of really professional, consistent manner? I would say I probably wouldn't ring that candidate. Equally, some of the positive things that we look for is the one here on the left. So the commitment to upskilling and learning, that's really good. Again, it's probably relevant for people, for everybody, but it's probably more relevant for people who haven't been in a job for a while. So, for example, if you've been out of work for 6 months, 12 months, a bit longer, then I would say having short-term courses maybe on your CV, put the hyperlink to that course on your CV. Again, it just fills a gap, but it also shows that you're committed to continually developing your brain and, I suppose, focusing your energy and your time from one week to the next on upskilling and taking ownership of your career journey as well. That really resonates with recruiters, that you've just taken that time to actually go and do some courses and that you're being proactive about it. So it tells the recruiter straight away that you're proactive about your career rather than being reactive. Again, it just fills the gap and it really freshens up the CV. If your last job wasn't for 2 years, I saw a CV a while ago of somebody that the last job was 3 or 4 years ago. So there's a big gap, which is fine. We all have gaps, but I would also address the gap. So if you're caring for an ill relative, if you're rearing children, if you're traveling, whatever the case may be, I would still put that in because it addresses the gap and it tells the recruiter that you're also a human being. So we all have lives outside our professional lives, so that you're, focused on other things, because, I mean, people, for instance, if I'm looking to hire a recruiter into our organization, I would always tend to look for a recruiter who's done maybe some traveling, because they've got that out of their system. They've also, I suppose, been exposed to working in different geographic locations, and that person brings, I suppose, a different skill set to maybe somebody who hasn't taken a chance and lived and worked abroad for a while. So I suppose, again, rather than saying nothing, I think it's important to fill the gap. But one very good way of filling the gap is by doing courses. And as I said, it shows a commitment to learning and upskilling as well, and that you're taking ownership of that career journey. Equally, one of the ones at the bottom is the career successes. So I suppose we all have worked in jobs at various times. We've all worked with people and colleagues. And are there people out there, are managers that you've worked under, are people who've reported into you as a manager previously? Are there people out there who would say good things about you, who would say nice things about you? So, for example, would they give you a recommendation on LinkedIn? I think, again, that's really good. It really warms up your LinkedIn profile. And if they give you a recommendation on LinkedIn, perhaps you could then take that recommendation and copy and paste it onto your CV. Because if you put that on your first page of your CV, it really shows the recruiter what type of person you are to work with, or work under, or work for example. And just put it in there. Just put one kind of quote from a peer-level colleague or something like that onto your CV as well, because it really shows the recruiter, it gives the recruiter kind of an inside track into what you're like in the workplace, if you like. So it tells a more kind of familiarizes the story of your professional life, if you like, for recruiters. And again, I don't see too many CVs with those recommendations on them. So the ones that do have them on, I suppose, create more of a memorable impact in my mind, and I would remember a candidate and probably more likely to engage with that candidate, reach out to them, call them and link in with them, etc. So that's just a tip in terms of career successes. And the key thing is, don't be modest. Think with a growth mindset. And what I'm saying is, don't be modest. I suppose when you're constructing your CV, think about glass half full, have a growth mindset in terms of thinking outside the box, and really, I suppose, push your successes and elevate your successes on your CV, because you can be sure that the next candidate applying for a job won't be modest. So that's just a bit of a tip there, because human nature, some of us are modest and not always prepared to go there and just really advertise ourselves in that kind of successful, kind of impactful way. So the next one is probably a key one, where it's walking in the shoes of a recruiter. So I suppose what I'm talking about again here is a growth mindset. And really a growth mindset is about, thinking. I spoke to somebody earlier who was working in retail for quite some time, and they want to give their CV a different slant in terms of maybe moving away from retail into a different industry. And you can't really do that unless you think with a growth mindset, think outside the box. And one of those things is thinking about the transferable skills that you have and telling that story in a different way to catch the attention of the recruiter, but through the way you actually construct the early part of your CV, you can create that, I suppose, impact with the recruiter and maybe push the recruiter's thinking away from you just being a retail person and get them to think about you in another way. So really applying a growth mindset in terms of your, first of all here, your job search strategy. So for example, where you look for your jobs, how you go about searching for jobs, because if you think about it, if you've been applying for jobs and searching for jobs through various platforms for the last couple of months and it's not yielding the right results for you, then the definition of craziness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to get a different result. It just doesn't happen. So you have to step back and go, okay, what am I actually going to change in terms of my job search process? What am I going to tweak? Because I obviously need to tweak something. So again, thinking with a growth mindset, thinking outside the box and going, okay, I need to do something a little bit different here. And that thinking with a growth mindset could be speaking to a colleague, asking for advice. It could be engaging with a career coach, or it could be just having that conversation with yourself, advising yourself to go, okay, I'm actually going to take a break from searching for jobs for a few weeks. I'm going to step back and just kind of see what I can do different, because what I've been doing up to now hasn't really led to a successful outcome for me. So again, what I'm saying here is you need to think like a recruiter. So essentially, if you, for example, don't have a career coach, everybody here has friends, everybody here has relatives, etc. So ask them to pretend, do a role play to be a recruiter. Ask them to see, what does your CV look like? Does it come across professionally? What message are you trying to get through on your CV? So for example, if you're looking to create a message through your CV that you are a successful sales or marketing person, you want to ask a friend or a colleague or a relative, does your CV convey that message? So in other words, from reading your CV, can they see quite clearly, absolutely laser focused, that you are a successful sales and marketing professional? If not, you need to change something. So ask people for advice and feedback on your CV, because it's really important, because we all need feedback on our CV, and I think it will only just help you in the long run. So for me, it's a big thing whereby asking yourself, this one here, this bullet point right here, if I was a recruiter, would my CV create a memorable impact with that recruiter? So when the recruiter looks at my CV, are they going to remember it for a while to come? I mean, if it's like the two examples earlier, where one is just really, really text heavy and it doesn't use those action verbs that I kind of mentioned earlier, then it's unlikely they're going to remember you beyond that 20-minute time period or whatever. So just put something into your CV that is just going to cause it to stand out. As I said, it could be a recommendation from a colleague or somebody that you worked with before, putting that on your CV. It could be a picture. It could be some sort of strong statement at the top of your CV, whatever the case may be. But it's really about making that memorable first impression with a recruiter. I think that's absolutely vital. So that's something to be cognizant of all the way through the job search process. The other piece is, I suppose, to stand out from other applicants, you need to tell that, I suppose, as job applicants, we all need to be, our job seekers, we all need to be good storytellers. We need to be able to tell the story of our career to date, of our professional life to date, because nobody knows their professional career or their journey more or better than you do yourself. So that's where ChatGPT comes in, whereby I'll talk about that in a second, but like being solely kind of reliant on ChatGPT is probably not a good thing, because the internet doesn't know your career as well as you know it yourself. So absolutely use AI, use ChatGPT, but make sure you keep it authentic and you put your own stamp on it before you apply in for jobs. That's the key thing. So really telling that compelling story on your CV and LinkedIn, talking about your successes, using strong action words, and maybe, as I said, putting some quotes in around kind of what colleagues would say about you, and any courses that you're doing currently or have done in the past, make sure that they're really up there at the top of your CV. Equally, if you have a visa or a stamp 4 visa and you're fully eligible to work here, you need to put that in the top of your CV as well. Because I have spoken to people in the past who have their visa, but the visa status is down at the bottom of the third page of their CV. So the recruiter might look at the CV and say, this person hasn't worked in Ireland before, they probably need a visa, so there's an element of doubt, and we just move on to the next CV. So if you do have the visa, it's almost like having an extra qualification nowadays. So make it easy for the recruiter and just put the link or put your visa status at the very top of your CV and on your LinkedIn as well, because then the recruiter knows straight away that you're kind of fully eligible to work here. Equally, if you've worked abroad for a while with different companies, I would suggest putting the hyperlink to the company website next to the company name on your CV, because sometimes recruiters may not know that company, and they can, again, you're making it easier for the recruiter. Just by clicking onto the hyperlink, they can see that company website, what type of company it is, and again, it just builds the recruiter's familiarity with your background and with the companies that you've tended to work for over the years as well, particularly if they've been companies that you haven't been, or that they're not familiar with locally here. So again, just making that positive impact, creating a memorable impression with the recruiter is the key piece, walking in the, essentially in the shoes of the recruiter. So just a couple of more bits. So do's and don'ts. As I said, do use ChatGPT. Absolutely use it. But again, don't overlook the authenticity of it, because recruiters can quite clearly see that that CV has gone through ChatGPT. It's a little bit automated. It's a little bit cold. It's a little bit robotic. And there's no personal touch to the CV. So you probably lose that engagement with the recruiter. So what I would suggest is use it, and then put the finishing touches to your CV by taking ownership of it yourself and adding your own bits, because it just creates that warmth and authenticity with the CV. As I said, nobody knows your professional journey more than you do, certainly not the internet. So just the second one is really good for somebody in sales roles, for example. Do include numbers, do include metrics. If you're applying for a sales job or some job where it's going to be target driven, every recruiter is going to look this straight away, and my brain is going to look to see if there's figures or stats or achievements on your CV. If there's not, then it tells me how successful a salesperson has this person been up to now. So really, don't be afraid, don't be modest, don't be afraid to put in those metrics and those numbers in your CV. So that's just kind of just another tip there in terms of a do and a don't. So recruiters love a very strong executive summary at the top of the CV. So that essentially, an executive summary at the top of your CV doubles up, I would suggest, as your cover note as well. So it's like your elevator pitch, it's your sales pitch. So talk in that first paragraph of your CV about what you've done up to now, what successes you've had, what you're looking for in your next role, and if you're immediately available, then put in I am immediately available in that profile summary section at the top of the CV. Because really what it is opening up that window into your situation to a recruiter. So like the key thing is the CV is the vehicle to get you the interview. So if you don't get the interview, you'll never have the opportunity to tell the recruiter you're immediately available, that you have a stamp for a visa, etc. So you need to put all that into the profile summary section at the top of the CV, and then the CV is more likely to get you the interview. Otherwise, if you leave all those things to chance or put them at the bottom of the CV, then you may not catch the recruiter's attention. So it is really, really important that is like your elevator pitch, strong executive summary, selling yourself using impactful words and language, talking about achievements in there that Killian or somebody else can talk about. It's your unique sales pitch in that paragraph. I would suggest don't use generic words like kind of good communicator, good team player. Every CV says that. Talk about really specific achievements that you've achieved. Talk about what you've done what you're passionate about, what you've done over the last couple of years, and what you're looking for in your next role. Just tell that story and take the time to do that in a really, really kind of professional manner. The only other things are career continuity, so that the dates flow right through your CV. If there is a gap for a couple of years and you're working in a part-time job that's not really what you want to be doing, I would still suggest putting that in. If you were traveling, or as I said, you were kind of raising children, etc., I would still put that in, because that, in my mind, is a job, of course. It's about kind of self-management. It's about structuring your day. So put that in as a job in itself, and it addresses any gaps in your CV. So continuity really sets the tone with recruiters, and we love to see that. We don't want to see any grey areas. So talk about continuity. We love to see career continuity. And I've mentioned this a couple of times, but the last one is peer level, colleague recommendations. Having that on your CV just every time really, it kind of makes an impact with me. It tells me what you're like to work with, and just kind of how you go about your daily job as well. So it's a really good window into your working habits and how you kind of, I suppose, perform in the workplace and how you go about your business. So asking colleagues, or if you're just a graduate from college, asking one of your fellow students, would they give you a recommendation about how you were on a particular project in college, etc. Every little helps. And you just want to kind of warm up the CV by telling the target audience kind of what you are like as a person and how you go about getting things done. So that's the colleague recommendation on LinkedIn, and you can also use that then on your CV. So just one or two other bits. This is a really important one, searchability. I keep talking about this in the various Jobs Expo events that I've done. So searchability, I spoke to somebody a while ago and we tried to find their profile on LinkedIn and we couldn't find it. So if somebody is sitting with me and we can't find it and they're spelling their name for me, then a recruiter who doesn't have you sitting in front of them is never going to find you. So what we really want to talk about here is, how searchable are you online? Is it difficult for you to find? Is it difficult for a recruiter to find you? And if they do find you, what do they see? Do they see a really professional profile? Do they see kind of spelling errors? Do they see dates all wrong, etc.? So you can ask your colleagues or friends or whatever, it doesn't have to be a career coach, to search for you online. And when they search for Killian O'Leary online, what do they find? Do they find a really nice LinkedIn profile? Do they see a professional approach, a professional perception of you? Because perception is one of the strongest words in the English language. So how are you perceived online? So again, the other thing to be aware of, you may have social platforms in the past, maybe where you had strong political views or said things or whatever. So do a bit of an audit across your kind of Facebook and so on and so forth. If you don't want a prospective employer to find you on Facebook, then make it private, because all of these things matter in today's world, and can absolutely kind of either derail or put a bit of impetus into your job search process. So, you know, is your CV easy to find online? Is it on the right job platforms, career platforms, and can recruiters find it easy enough? If it's hard to find you online, then you need to do something about it and you need to change it. It could be the terms or the search buzzwords that you put in your CV. It could be anything, but something that's restricting a recruiter from finding you online, you need to do a quick check on that, or as I said, ask a friend or a colleague to search for you online, do a Google search, and what comes up when they put your name into Google. So the definition of searchability, I Googled it yesterday, is it refers to the extent to which someone may be searched, or the ease with which it can be searched or you can be searched. So are you easy to find online? If you're a job seeker, you need to be accessible online, and it needs to send the right tone in terms of when you are found, what does it look like? So that's really it in terms of where recruiters' brain goes, what we look for, what we don't like to see and what we do like to see, and what has the effect of creating a very kind of warm, rapport-like kind of engagement with recruiters through your CV and LinkedIn, essentially. So just a couple of tips there. If anyone wants to have a copy of those slides, I'm available on LinkedIn. You can send me a message and I'm happy to send you on the slides as well. Thanks, folks, for listening.
Killian O'Leary, everyone, from Berkeley Group.